Welcome back to my channel. Throughout history, punishment has been used not just to deter crime, but as a means of terror, control, and societal lessons. Some of these punishments, however, were so brutal and inhumane, they leave us questioning how humanity ever allowed them to exist. Today, we're diving into some of the worst punishments in human history that are nothing short of horrifying. The breaking wheel, medieval Europe. Let's talk about a really awful punishment from the Middle Ages in Europe called the breaking wheel. Imagine a big wooden wheel, like a giant wagon wheel. Criminals were tied to this wheel, and someone would use a heavy club or hammer to smash their bones, their arms, legs, and other limbs. It was incredibly painful. After their bones were broken, the person was left tied to the wheel, sometimes for a very long time, hours or even days, for everyone to see. This was meant to scare people and show them what would happen if they committed crimes. The suffering was so extreme that some people actually died from the injuries before the execution was even finished. The Iron Maiden, Germany, 18th century. Next, let's take a look at the notorious Iron Maiden, a terrifying torture device that is believed to have originated in Germany during the medieval period. This device was a large, coffin-like iron cabinet designed to enclose the victim. The inside of the cabinet was lined with sharp spikes, carefully placed to ensure that when the victim was locked inside, they would be slowly impaled by the spikes, causing excruciating pain as the spikes pierced their body. The victim would often suffer in unbearable agony, sometimes for hours, depending on their position. Although there is some debate among historians about whether the Iron Maiden was ever truly used for torture, or if it was just a later invention, the idea alone is enough to send chills down your spine. The Spanish Inquisition, 15th to 17th century. One of the darkest and most terrifying chapters in history, the Spanish Inquisition saw countless men and women subjected to brutal torture in the name of religious purification. The Inquisition, which was a period of intense religious persecution, used horrifying methods to extract confessions from suspected heretics. Among these methods was a form of waterboarding, where victims were made to inhale or ingest water, causing extreme pain and the sensation of drowning. People were also burned at the stake, a horrific way of executing those accused of heresy, witchcraft, or other crimes. Another common method of torture was the strappado, where victims were hung by their arms, often behind their backs, causing unbearable pain and dislocation of their shoulders. The purpose of these gruesome techniques was not only to extract confessions, but to instill fear in the population, ensuring compliance with the religious authorities of the time. Lijiang, death by 1,000 cuts. China, 9th century. Imagine the unimaginable, a slow, agonizing death where each breath becomes harder to take, and your body is slowly torn apart over hours. This was the horrific reality of Lijiang, also known as death by 1,000 cuts, a brutal form of execution used in imperial China. The condemned person would be tied to a post or table, and the torturer would begin by making small, precise cuts on the victim's body, often starting with less fatal areas like the arms or legs. Over time, these cuts would become deeper and more numerous, slowly dismembering the body in a cruel, drawn-out process. The goal of Lijiang was not only to inflict unimaginable physical pain, but also to humiliate the victim in front of the public. This execution was meant to be a horrifying spectacle, sending a chilling message to everyone who witnessed it or heard of it. No crime would go unpunished, and this was the fate that awaited those who defied the law. The guillotine, France, 18th to 19th century. Though often considered a more humane method of execution compared to others, the guillotine has earned its place as one of the most terrifying symbols of punishment in human history. Developed in France during the late 18th century, it was designed to be a swift and efficient way of ending a life. The idea behind the guillotine was to deliver a quick and relatively painless death by beheading, with a heavy angled blade falling swiftly onto the victim's neck. The guillotine became infamous during the French Revolution, a time when it was used to execute thousands, including some of the most notable figures in French history. King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette both met their end beneath its cold, unforgiving blade. These executions, along with many others, were meant to demonstrate the power of the revolutionaries and the finality of their rule. The flogging post, colonial America, and the British Empire. During the age of exploration and empire building, public flogging was one of the most common and brutal forms of punishment. Those found guilty of offenses such as theft, insubordination, or rebellion were often subjected to this horrific treatment. The victim would be stripped of their clothes and bound to a post, where they would endure lashes from a whip or a bundle of rods. The whipping was so severe that it often left the person's back raw, bleeding, and torn. What made flogging even more excruciating was that it was done in front of a crowd, usually as a public spectacle. This was done not only to punish the individual, but also to send a clear message to everyone else about the consequences of defying authority. The goal was to instill fear and maintain control over the population. The Scorns Bridal, 16th to 18th century. Moving to England and colonial America, the Scorns Bridal was a cruel and humiliating punishment primarily used on women who were accused of gossiping, arguing, or speaking out of turn. This device, made of iron, was designed to silence and punish women for perceived social offenses. The Scorns Bridal consisted of a cage that was placed over the head, with a metal gag inserted into the mouth to prevent the woman from speaking or even making noise. The purpose of the Scorns Bridal was not only to silence women, but to publicly shame them. After being locked into this device, the woman would often be paraded through the streets, displayed in front of the community, as a form of punishment. This act of public humiliation was meant to degrade the woman, reinforce societal norms, and discourage others from speaking out or defying authority. The device itself was uncomfortable and painful, causing physical distress, but the emotional and social humiliation was even more devastating. The bamboo torture, ancient China. Known for its extraordinary cruelty, the bamboo torture method in ancient China was one of the most horrific and agonizing punishments ever created. The process involved planting bamboo shoots beneath the victim's body, typically while they were restrained in a lying position. Over time, the bamboo shoots would grow, slowly piercing through the victim's skin, muscles, and bones. The growth of the bamboo was not only painfully slow, but also incredibly intense, with the shoots pushing through the body in various directions, causing excruciating pain as they grew. This method could take days or even weeks to fully complete, meaning the victim would endure prolonged suffering. The torture was designed to break the victim both physically and mentally, with no quick escape from the pain. What made this method even more terrifying was the fact that the bamboo's growth was almost inevitable, and there was no way for the victim to stop it. History is filled with examples of inhumane punishment, each more shocking than the last. While these methods are now part of the past, they serve as stark reminders of the cruelty that humans are capable of, and how far we've come in recognizing the rights and dignity of all people. What punishment shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more thought-provoking and historical content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.